Friends and fellow citizens, as we head for polling day, here are some thoughts. We are on the cusp of change in our journey towards nationhood. This is the pivotal moment for us to exercise our rights as citizens, to build our society that we want Singapore to become, away from the trajectory that we have been accustomed to. In my view, we must move away from the single-party dominant system for the long-term flourishing of Singapore. We have to bear in mind that Singapore was built on the foundation of democracy when PAT was first voted into power in 1959. Understandably, the tumultuous 1960s, the fledgling 1970s, and possibly into the 1980s were not the best time to talk about freedom of speech. In that light, Singaporeans must be lauded for being the most forbearing and obedient citizens as we defer our rights to self-actualization by cooperating fully with government institutions to put in place our policies on food, housing, health, and education. I have often said, and I'll say it once again, that it is not just about our far-sighted leaders, but you and I and the earlier generations of ordinary Singaporeans who have stood by PAT to give them our unquestioning mandate that has brought us to where we are today. An economic miracle of sorts. This would not have happened without the strong social compact between the government and her people. If I may liken our nation building to a family, children are the most pliant and most compliant darlings to their parents. It is a perfectly healthy order of relationships. However, that becomes an anomaly if the parents were to expect the children who have become teenagers to continue behaving like unquestioning minions. Far more unrealistic would the parents be in expecting their children who have become young adults by now to be intimidated by threats of curfew hours, don't talk over me, withholding of pocket allowances, and other privileges. You can't continue giving candies to your teenagers in exchange for some desired behaviors, can you? Nationhood is the same. We know a far better way in maintaining this erstwhile parent-child bond is through negotiation and a new social compact based on mutual respect. This presupposes a paternalistic relationship between PAT and the citizens, which in itself is a huge plus for the incumbents, unheard of in any democracy, which they should not take for granted. I was a PAT supporter for the longest time, from the early 1980s to the late 1990s. The political awakening came in the 2000s when for the first time I was out of the cushy corporate ivory tower, which is by extension the Singapore Incorporated. It is different when you have to scrape the barrel to make ends meet and to provide for a family as a self-employed. All the government-led job schemes did not work in my circumstances. I have to start from scratch my own itinerant tuition business, which has over the past 22 years become my lifeline and now my semi-retirement safety net. At that time, I wanted to engage PAP on how its policies just were not inclusive enough to seal the cracks that were meant for the greater good. That fell on deaf ears and an opaque red tape. I voted in good conscience for the opposition in 2011 and 2020. I voted for PAP in GE 2015 because I managed to find a corporate job, but that proved short-lived as for some unjustified reasons, Singapore Incorporated asked me to resign. It was back to self-employment. You will realize by now there's a pattern in my voting behavior, or for that matter, any citizens who has gone through like Travis, where you have the encompassing corporate umbrella above you, all is white and good. But once you step out of that symbolic Tembusu tree, the white becomes a mockery. I've seen it from both sides. Hence, I'll go so far as to say, based on the current policy framework, one must continue to be in this behemoth, socially engineered corporate system, or more metaphorically, on the institutional treadmill to continue enjoying the good life in Singapore. Hence, the ever-receding hairline of the statutory retirement age. In hindsight, I would like to state that almost all the past and present government yearly grants and handouts from budgetary surpluses in the past 10 years for all its good in hand had not accrued to me for one reason or another. Before I explain why I consider this a privileged position, here's where the crux of the issue lies. When you formulate a policy to plug in a gap for a certain segment of population that meets your means testing and the targeted beneficiary is helped, that is a good thing for them and society. However, once that becomes entrenched and institutionalized without periodic audit checks, the same people are being pandered to year in and year out, where perhaps the situation has evolved over time and the need might not be there any longer, or at least not as acute. Insidiously, these same beneficiaries could have gamed the system and continued to reap an unethical advantage out of the schemes. This not only supports a segment that has become a leech, but it also takes away resources from another more deserving segment who faces different types of challenges and are being overlooked. Such is the result of a myopic group think if we do not bring perspectives from outsiders to raise red flags or blind spots. That said, in exercising my vote for GE 2025, I do not come with an entitlement mentality. If I so choose to vote for PEP, also I heard my inner voice telling me. I've walked the ground and got to know all the candidates contesting in my constituency. As a further safeguard, since the mainstream media might not always do justice to the opposition camp, I've personally sought out the opposition party in my ward to better understand more about their motivation and manifesto in a face-to-face interview with the candidates. After many days of viewing the podcast, rally speeches, and all things considered, I have all but made up my mind. It is a difficult decision for me. This time is different. I do not vote because I'm having a job or the lack of. I'm in a position to vote from higher grounds, without fear or favor. I'll vote for PAP come 3rd May. Stand tall, my worthy opposition party members. I know your journey to Parliament is incredibly challenging. Hold fast to the day when our little red dot shall be a shining beacon of democracy. Let's not be tainted by the poor demonstrations of Western-style democracy. We are not going to mimic them. Together we can calibrate and build our own brand of democracy. Who knows, we might even showcase an unprecedented democracy model that might be worthy of a Nobel Prize consideration. Stand tall, my comrades. To my PAP comrades, sit tall. Sit tall in all parliamentary sittings. Do not slouch. By electing you to return as our next majority-formed government, you owe it to citizens to ask hard questions and to provide the first-level accountability check. I do not say this in a cavalier way. We require you to give your 100% focus in chamber. That is the least we can expect of our worthy representatives, the highest paid parliamentarians in the world. Sit tall, my comrades. Thank you. All the best to candidates in GE 2025.